All right. Well, welcome to this video. I'm with Ryan,
What's
and
up, everybody?
we're gonna be recapping the the, the trade that's obviously on screen right now. We're gonna be recapping the Blue Jackets Jets trade, which involved Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, I mean, we felt that it was probably a good time to review this trade, even though it's only been one season for both of these guys on the new team. So much has already happened, especially today. Patrick Laine just re-signed to a shot under $9 million for the next 4 years with the Blue Jackets. Roslovic just coming off on a 2 year deal as well that he signed with Columbus. And on the other hand, Pierre-Luc Dubois looks like he's trying to force his way out again. So, we've got a tale of two stories here. A lot of updates already happening to this trade that happened just a year ago. So we just felt it was a good time to recap it. Who's winning so far, who's gone the shorter end of the stick, what we think the future outlook for this trade is going forward. So yeah.
First of all, I will say this: uh, at the time, the trade did look good. It doesn't anymore. So it was
Yeah.
basically Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic going to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Pierre-Luc Dubois and a 2022 third round pick. We'll get into who that third round pick was became eventually. Um, but at the time, it was basically Pierre-Luc Dubois not trying, barely doing anything on the ice. Uh, I mean, I remember watching him play because that was the year that the divisions were all messed up when the trade
Yeah.
happened, and because the Blue Jackets were in the division with the Predators, I just remember watching games where he would literally just like half skate, and that
I
was
mean, yeah. I mean,
that's all he would
it
do.
was that iconic clip, right? Where for that one shift where, he was not he was basically just gliding on the ice. He was pointing out instructions to his teammates, but he wasn't hustling. And he got into the corner, he got tangled up with his own defenseman, nearly tripped his own defenseman over, and then just glided back the other way before giving up on getting tied up and just giving up on the spot before going to the bench. And he got traded 2 days later.
Yeah,
Literally. It happened on January 21st. He got traded on the 23rd, because he just kind of forced Columbus's hand. He's like, I'm not happy here, and I'm not going to be professional about it. I'm just going to give up on the team. I'm going to give up on my teammates. I'm going to give up on the franchise that drafted me, third overall, in the top three, third overall. I'm just going to give up. I'm not going to play because I don't feel like playing. And the reality was, let's be honest, Pierre-Luc Dubois would not have fetched that much if Patrick Laine was also unhappy in Winnipeg. But Laine was happy for a very different reason, right? Pierre-Luc Dubois was not happy with the coach and how Tortorella forces players to play hard every game, and play a disciplined, physical, defensive game, right? He also didn't like the market in Columbus, right? Whereas Laine didn't have those issues. He just felt that the locker room, some of the guys weren't the greatest to him, and he also felt that he wasn't really getting an opportunity on the top line, to really showcase his skill,
he
and
also
that's the only reason
wanted.
those guys and Roslovic also wanted out,
Yeah,
right?
I th-
So
and another big reason why Laine wanted out is because he knows that you know the internet in Canada probably isn't as good for Fortnite playing, so that's probably why. He just
I
wants
mean,
to
yeah.
Fortnite,
I guess so.
which I guess
I mean,
was something in the locker room that kind of caused the divide.
yeah, and surprisingly, funny enough, I think a lot of people actually saw this trade coming, in the weeks leading up to it, because I'd even mocked it in our Discord server. I was like, you know what, Laine and Roslovic aren't happy in Winnipeg, Pierre-Luc Dubois is not happy in Columbus. Maybe they just swapped the guys, and then they did. And at the time, it really looked like, at the time for me, actually, I thought Winnipeg won that trade because I didn't like the fact that Laine didn't play a two-way game. I didn't see Roslovic as a top six forward, and I looked at Pierre-Luc Dubois as a guy where, it was fresh off the season where he dominated my Maple Leafs in the playoffs, and I thought, man, this guy on Winnipeg he could be a game changer. Big, physical, fast, can give you 60 points in the season, and if he continues to develop, maybe 70, 80 points. He can be a leader. He can be a wrecking ball in the playoffs, and you get a third round pick for two guys you basically didn't want anymore. Like that's a great deal for Winnipeg. Fast forward 2 years, actually. Excuse me, I said 1 year earlier, but fast forward 2 years, and honestly, I think things couldn't have gone worse for Winnipeg in this trade.
Yeah, no, I mean, Laine and Roslovic have turned into pretty good pieces for Columbus, um, and obviously, they've turned into very good players for Columbus. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I
Meanwhile,
have the stats right here. Laine was point per game last season for Columbus before he got hurt, and Roslovic had almost a 50-point season with Columbus, and playing 14, 15 minutes of ice time. So both of them were pretty good.
yeah,
And Dubois had 60 points in 80 games, which isn't bad for Winnipeg, but that's not number one center type numbers.
yeah. Obviously, Laine signed that 4 year, $8.7 million. Roslovic has 2 years at $4 million left, and Dubois just signed the qualifying offer, which is a 1 year, $6 million deal. And honestly, like I would say, no matter what, if the Jets just gave up Laine or just gave up Roslovic and got Pierre-Luc Dubois in return, and it was just one of them and not both, I still think that Columbus loses this trade because, or not Columbus, Winnipeg loses this trade
Mhm.
because Dubois just been so disappointing.
Okay, I wouldn't. I feel like if it was Roslovic for Dubois, I still think Winnipeg wins that deal because Roslovic, he's been good, but he's not special the same way that Pierre Luc Dubois can be special. What I will say is if it was a Laine for Dubois 1-for-1 swap, 100% Winnipeg lost that deal. Oh my God, it wouldn't even be close. Line A is an elite goal scorer, point per game. It doesn't matter that he's not very good at defense. He puts the puck in the back of the net. And the most important thing is he wants to stay in Columbus. He signed a 4 year contract that takes three of his unrestricted free agent years away from him, to commit to Columbus, to play with Johnny Gaudreau. Whereas Pierre-Luc Dubois is forcing his way out again.
And
He
and
wasn't happy in Columbus. He wasn't happy in Winnipeg. And he only wants to go to one team. He
here's
wants
the
to go to Montreal.
yeah, and here's a counterpoint, a counter thing to what you said. If it was Roslovic for Pierre Dubois 1-for-1, Columbus wins the trade in my opinion because guess what? Dubois wants out, and even if he can be way better than Roslovic, he hasn't shown it, and he's not going to show it because I guarantee you, if he's not gone and he starts the season with Winnipeg, we're gonna see the exact same thing. He's just going to be out there barely skating, not trying, and it's just going to be a repeat of him when he wanted out of Columbus. At least Roslovic wants to play and is playing. It might not he might not be have as good as upside as Pierre Luc Dubois, but when Pierre Luc Dubois isn't even trying out there, there's no reason to even think about anything else because guess what? Pierre Luc Dubois may have the ability to be a 70, 80 point scorer, but what's the point in having the ability and the potential if you're not going to try?
You're not going to apply that potential and that ability to benefit the team.
Yeah,
I get that. And I think that's what it kind of means in terms of when we look at the outlook of this trade going forward. Because I think up to this point, Winnipeg has lost. Because Laine's been more productive than Pierre-Luc Dubois on a game-to-game basis, and Roslovic is impacting Columbus right now, whereas the third round pick is nowhere close to the NHL. And Dubois he did have his second highest point total in his career up to this point with Winnipeg last season, but he's not a number one C. He hasn't shown that, right? And his ice time has reflected that. And I think the issue with going forward is it could get even worse for Winnipeg because, you know, last time it was, oh, he's a center who's just unhappy with his coach, the city, the franchise. He just needs a new change of scenery and he'll be better. He goes to Winnipeg, and it's happened again. Now it's no longer just, it's just that one team. He just needs to change the scenery. Now it's this is a guy who only wants to play for specific teams, and he's picky about it. And there's no guarantee if we trade for him that he's going to stick around for more than 2 seasons.
Yeah, and it's not like a
That's going to impact.
situation when a player wants out. There's two ways that the team and the player can go about it. The good way to go about it is to play well, make other teams want you, and at least give the team that you want out of something in return for them taking a chance on you and them helping you and everything. And then there's the bad way to go about it. You go to the media, you don't try, and you just show the team that you do not care. And then there's the even
Right.
worse way about it, to show the team that you don't care, to not try, to go to the media about it. But then there's the even worse way to go about it, is to say, I only want to go to this team.
Right.
Like,
which is where he is now.
yeah.
Um,
And he's gone
because he will
about it
only go to Montreal.
in the worst way possible. And if you're Montreal, well, if you're Winnipeg and he only wants to go to one team, it, you have no leverage because
They've been handcuffed. They've been
every
absolutely handcuffed.
all every other the 30 teams that aren't Winnipeg and aren't Montreal, well, they're going to say, why should we even try to trade for him? Because he's not going to try. Because he's shown the reputation of not trying when he doesn't get what he wants. And if you're Montreal, you have to first say to yourself, well, we're not even going to give up much for
Do
him
we
because
do we want him?
they have no leverage. But do we even want him?
Want him?
Because
Yeah.
what's the odds that he's just going to do this again?
And that's the big question, right? Because that's why the trade value for Dubois is so difficult because you have to keep in mind any team that trades for Dubois right now has him for 1 year, sure, right? Sign him to a 1 year. He's on a 1 year deal right now, 6 million. Let's just say Winnipeg retains 50%, so you get 1 year of Dubois for 3 million, right? That's fine. Is that worth a first round pick?
No.
Probably, maybe. We've seen worse players get a first round pick at the deadline, right? It's possible, but you have to keep in mind that you have to re-sign him right after as an RFA, right? And every team is now going, and whatever team, let's just say Carolina, for example, wants Dubois, and they trade a first round pick for him at the deadline, 50% retained. They get him for half a season. It's just a postseason rental, right? They do pretty well, and then they're like, you know what, Pierre, let's sign an extension. You've been good here with us. We like you here. We can win a lot of games. We can make it to the playoffs. Make deep cup runs. Let's bring you back. And Pierre Luc Dubois goes, I want to go to Montreal. I'm not interested in re-signing you. Now you're Carolina. You go. So he's unsigned. We're probably gonna have to pay him a bag, like $6-7 million for this last year. But the issue is no other team is going to trade for him because he's not under contract right now, right? And any team that does trade for him is going to know, hey, we have to give up a first round pick, a prospect for Dubois, and then we have to pay him $7 million for next season, and he might not even re-sign with us and just go to Montreal in unrestricted free agency. So all those issues might make it so that right now Winnipeg might not get a suitor for him because who's willing to take on the risk that they can convince Pierre-Luc Dubois to sign a long-term extension past his unrestricted free agency date? There
And
might
let's say
not be
this,
that many.
like, what are the odds that if you decide to take a chance on Pierre-Luc Dubois, how long until, well, I'm not on Montreal, I'm not going to try now? How long before he just decides to stop trying?
Right. Um and like I don't know, like, and some people are gonna say, oh, like Pierre-Luc Dubois is not that problematic. He's misunderstood. He went from Columbus to Winnipeg. Like, come on, neither of those are the big hockey markets he wants to play for. Well, tough luck, right? Like John Tavares and Johnny Gaudreau. John Tavares got shit from the New York Islanders for like 3 seasons after he left because He told them that he was going to re-sign with them. He did. He asked them not to trade him, and he left for Toronto in free agency. Johnny Gaudreau is about to get shit from the Calgary fans because he's leaving for Columbus for less money, and he's not going back to Calgary. You know the difference between those two guys and Pierre-Luc Dubois? John Tavares and Johnny Gaudreau both gave up 9 years of their career to their respective teams. They served their time. You took us with a draft pick, and I re-signed with you. I gave you 9 years of my career to pay that back. And then when I'm an unrestricted free agent, I have the right to choose where I go, and no one should criticize me for it.
Yeah,
What I
and
can't
the
stand
only
about
reason to criticize either Gaudreau or Tavares is you shouldn't criticize Gaudreau. You can criticize Tavares for telling management that he didn't want to be traded because he
yeah,
was going to resign, and then he doesn't resign. You can criticize him for that, and rightfully so. But
yeah,
he is, you know, they get to choose where they want to go. But obviously, Tavares should be
and
criticized for that. But the difference is that
neither of them gave up on their team.
neither of them
They
gave up.
served their 9 years. They served their 9 years, and both of those guys took their team on deep playoff runs. John Tavares carried that Islanders team to multiple second round matchups. Johnny Gaudreau was the best player on Calgary last year, where they obviously got knocked out by Edmonton, but he was a great for them all season long. Pierre-Luc Dubois spent 3 years in Columbus and was like, I'm not feeling it. Screw you. You took me with the third overall pick. I don't care. I don't owe you anything. Yes, you do. They drafted you third overall. They have your rights for 9 seasons. You're gonna cut bait after three just because you don't want to play in a small market, just because your coach wants you to play a two-way game and be physical. You're 6'3". You should be physical. And then they trade you and you go to Winnipeg, right? Oh, and you spend 2 seasons there and then you're not happy again. Oh, it's too small of a market. I want to go to Montreal, right? Like, obviously, like, yes, there's a new wave of player empowerment, but at the same time, like, this just looks weak-minded,
And
right? These teams, like, don't hold your teams hostage for believing in your talent, for taking a shot and bringing you onto their team. Don't hold them hostage for that, right? It's fine if you want out. It's fine if you want to get traded. But don't give up on the team just because you want to. And that's where I lose it when people say, "Oh, Pierre-Luc Dubois is not that bad." When's the last time a player that wanted to get traded gave up on the team on the ice and was visibly noticeable? The
and,
clip of Pierre-Luc Dubois giving up on Columbus went viral the night it happened. That's why he got traded 2 days later.
and
Like, I don't know.
to sort of
This
show the
trade just
other
looks
side
worse
of
and
it,
worse for Winnipeg.
I do understand a player wants to go where he wants. I'm pretty sure everybody right now has a favorite team and a team that they would like to go to if they play in the NHL. I'm, no doubt. Like if you say that you'd play for any team, obviously you would, but there's obviously a favorite that you have and you would want to go to. So it's
Right.
fine. If he wants to go to Montreal, that's fine. Request a trade, I don't care. That it's him, he's his own person, he's allowed to do whatever he wants. You want it out of Columbus? Fair enough. You don't like Tortorella? A lot of people don't like him. Fine, just request a trade. But don't don't give up. Like at least you like not only you owe at least you owe the fans something to
Just
because
to give it your just to try,
like
right? Like,
you know what, I'm gonna say this: screw the GM, screw the owners, screw management, and screw your teammates. You owe it to the fans to at least try because they're spending their hard-earned money to like and you
to
know
watch you play the game
NHL
that you love to
games
play.
aren't cheap. They're spending their
I mean, they
hard-earned
might be they
money.
might be in Columbus to be fair, but that's besides the point.
But either way,
Like,
it's not cheap for most people. I mean, even $50 is still pretty not cheap for a lot of people. They're spending their
right.
hard-earned money, and not only are they spending their money, but they're spending their time. So you could at least try for the fans.
Yeah, and it could Pierre Dubois might get traded to Montreal, and he might have a great career with Montreal. And let's just say he doesn't change his mind, and he likes it in Montreal, and he stays there for the rest of his career, and he's amazing there, right? This narrative is still not going to escape him. It's not going to leave him just because he spent 10 years after this with Montreal. The reality is he skipped out on two teams. He skipped out on two teams that gave him a chance. He forced his way out to his hometown team, and like it just I feel like it would set a very dangerous precedent for what is okay and acceptable and what players can get away with in the NHL. If you're a star player and it doesn't matter if you're unrestricted or it doesn't matter if you're restricted, you can act out of pocket. You can give up on your team. You can look noticeably disinterested, and you're going to get what you want eventually. I think that's the wrong message to send. And I feel bad for Winnipeg in the sense that they've really been handcuffed. No one wants Pierre Luc Dubois. No one wants him. No one's going to give you valuable assets to get him because they know where his heart's at. And that's the part where I don't get.
and and
If
we
you
can
want out, don't make it harder for the team that's trying to trade you to trade you,
yeah, and
right?
we
And
can
Winnipeg's
and
not going to part with you for three third round picks.
yeah,
But you saying you're only going to go to Montreal just makes it harder for Chevy to do his job.
and it's
You
not
maybe Chevy wants to trade him right now, but he can't. He's not going to take two third round picks for him.
it's not just Pierre Luc Dubois that has sort of started this whole trend of things happening. You saw it with Tony D'Angelo. He literally just toxicked his way out of New York. It's not just Tony D'Angelo. It's not just Pierre Luc Dubois. You've been seeing it with players, like, and I think that before hockey has a culture problem. We know this, and
That's true.
hockey does have a culture problem. You see it all the time. You see it everywhere. You don't even need to point at anything. It's just known. Hockey has a culture problem.
The old boys club.
And the way to fix the old boys club isn't to let players do this type of stuff. Because like because at least you know you just at least got to pretend to be interested in playing for teams that you're not too fond of. If you're on a team that you don't want to be on, at least play that way other teams will want you. Don't just request a trade and then not try.
I'm going to say this. Player empowerment is important, right? Because the reality is the players are $1 million earners who work for $1 billion corporations, right? The owners of the franchises are worth billions, hundreds of millions, and the players themselves are worth a couple 10 million, right? So yes, player empowerment is important, right? Players should demand the best. Players should demand to be paid at the value that they deserve. That's why the CBA exists. That's why after 9 years, you're allowed to hit unrestricted free agency, and you're allowed to choose a team you go to, right? Um, Players get those kinds of protections already, right? Whereas teams don't really do. And in terms of the culture problem in hockey, you know, I think in generally in regards to this specific issue, in regards of players wanting to want out and move out, um, is not as much of an issue as perhaps a league like the NBA. What I will say is that um, it needs to be, I suppose, like I'm fearful that this is going to be the start of something that we see more frequently, like we do in the NBA, where really this whole thing got started with Anthony Davis and Boogie Cousins, who were very unhappy with their team, forced their way for a trade out of town. And then what happened ever since? After Anthony Davis got traded, we've seen Russell Westbrook get moved, Paul George get moved. We've seen James Harden literally pulled the Pierre Luc Dubois, got fat when he came to training camp, didn't try, got traded right away. Then he did it again, right? We saw it with Kyrie, who didn't want to stay in Cleveland anymore, right? Player empowerment is important, but at the same time, we need to find a balance, right? We cannot let a player like Pierre-Luc Dubois set a dangerous precedent for other players and say it's okay to quit on your team, because I think that goes against the fundamental values of hockey, of a
Yeah,
sport,
and
because hockey is a blue collar sport.
it's not like how it is in baseball, where minor league players are treated like shit. They're not even paid minimum wage. Many of them have to sleep in their cars on the streets or just like in hotel floors with other teammates because they're paid nothing. And their only hope of getting paid is play better when they realistically have no time to train because they have to work other jobs to provide. It's not as bad as baseball because minor leaguers in baseball, a lot of them are just homeless and stuff.
Right.
Because player empowerment is important because they're human. You know, they deserve to be
Exactly.
treated decently, and obviously it's not as bad as baseball and players just being treated like garbage. But they're also so no one's saying that players should be treated like garbage, and no one's saying that teams should hold on to players and just because they can and stuff. No, like players deserve to go to free agency. They deserve to test their worth. They deserve to do all that. Just don't give up on your team. Just make it
Exactly.
known that you want to play and that it's not a thing where, oh, if you're unhappy you're just gonna screw over the team.
Right. Um, and I hope this doesn't become a recurring issue. But you were starting to see the trend, right? Jai Gaudreau left Calgary by his own free volition. He's perfectly in his rights to do that. But now we see Matthew Tkachuk wants to leave Calgary, right? And he's an RFA still, and he's saying, "Oh, and although the reports have been refuted, there were reports that came out. Oh, he only wants to go to St. Louis or Dallas or Nashville, and that's area around his family, right? Whether or not those reports are actually true or not, we don't know. But another RFA, another high-profile RFA, another RFA that the team has done everything it possibly can to try to keep him happy, to surround him with talent, and he wants out because one player decided to leave. It's just a dangerous precedent because now teams are going to say, well, if I draft a prospect and I'm a small market team, if I'm not a Toronto or a New York or one of these big markets like Montreal, are players going to want to stay on my team? Or after a couple of seasons, are they going to be unhappy? They're going to try to force their way out, right? Or if it's a team, a small market team that can't necessarily afford the signing bonuses and the cap, not cap, but like just the physical amount of dollars that they pay on signing to some players. Are they gonna have to be like, oh, so if a player wants a higher signing bonus or a very high signing bonus and we can't afford it, that he's not going to be happy with us and he's going to want out? Am I going to have to dish more out of my pocket to compete with these bigger market teams? Um, right? And this is not talking about team. These are talking about teams that are already struggling, especially where they're not an original six team. They're not a team with a lot of history, and they're not in a team with low state income tax, right? And now they're going to be struggling even more. It's a very dangerous precedent that Pierre-Luc Dubois is setting for this new generation of hockey. And I'm relatively certain I don't like how it's going. We need more players that are willing to stick with their team. We need players to continue to do that, to show that valor, that commitment to the team that drafted you, that gave you a chance, is not dead.
Let
That Pierre-Luc Dubois is the exception,
Yeah, and
not the new rule.
to sort of end this video on a high note, right? We'll go over a case where a player who was actually going to be a UFA, right, wasn't signing because of the direction of the team. And obviously, I'm going to bring up, I think is the most recent case of this happening, but the case that I know the best because I'm a Predators fan, right? You
Right.
had Philip Forsberg, longtime Nashville Predator, was traded literally was traded on the same day he was drafted, basically, to the Predators. Has been a fan favorite forever. Every Predators fan was demanding him to be re-signed and everything. Um, and it was just forever where he wasn't re-signing, right? And he made it known that he wanted to stay if the Predators were going to stay just push in the right direction. So what did he do? He just stayed quiet, and then when he made it known that that's what he wanted. So what happened? David Poile went out and acquired Ryan McDonough. What happened right after? Philip Forsberg was re-signed. So
Yeah.
it obviously there's still players who will just make it known what they want and such, and that's good because obviously Forsberg wanted to stay in Nashville. His fiance is from there. He spent his whole career there. The fans love him. It's a great place to live in general, and you know, but he
Yeah, for sure.
he
Like
also had the right to
I'm
test the
not
market.
questioning. I'm not questioning a player's right to, have input in how their team is built, especially when you're a superstar player, right? It's not as prevalent in hockey, the same way that it is in the NBA.
You just cut out. You're completely gone. Um, well, he's completely gone for now. Uh, yeah, as sort of as to what I was saying, because I really don't know where he was going to go with it. But it is understandable for players to want to have input, and they deserve to have input. They're on the team. They obviously know where they want to go with it. Um, uh, sorry. They obviously know where they want to go with it, and everything. So you can't just like you need to figure out what's a good way to have input and not be too not be bad. Forsberg would just go out, try, play his ass off, prove that he was worth more than the Predators gave him. Obviously, he's worth more than that. He stayed, and he let it know what he wanted out of the team to stay. He didn't go up there and demand that this happened. He didn't go out and do any of that. He just made it known. And oh, he's Ryan's back.
Yeah.
And so
And I just want to put the point where I think that's good for the game because I think players should hold their teams accountable to a higher standard, right? Just because you are bad and the team is not doing well does not mean that you can give up on the team and then expect me to stay around. I think that's good. I think players should do that. I think it improves the quality of the league. I think it holds teams accountable to stay competitive instead of just being willing to sell off players for picks. Um, if they do that, then that's their prerogative, and the star player also has the right to say, "Hey, I don't like the direction this is going. I'd like you to trade me." Right? And I think that's all important. But it all just comes down to you have to make sure that what Pierre-Luc Dubois is doing right now to the two teams that have invested so much into him, um, is to make sure that he is the exception to the rule and not the new norm. Because I think if that were to happen, a lot of smaller teams are going to suffer for it. I think Winnipeg is going to suffer heavily, even more so than they already do. Um, I think not necessarily teams like Dallas, but teams like Florida, right, who do benefit from the lower state income tax, but have Tampa to contend with, in that market. Even Seattle, right, or some of those LA teams, right, like they're gonna struggle because they're not the biggest hockey market. Um, I just don't want the game to suffer because of the actions of, an individual setting a new wave of what is acceptable at the NHL level.
yeah. Uh, I, I guess we'll wrap it up. This was supposed to be like a 20-minute video. It's now 30 minutes. But there ended up being a lot more to talk about because this is a big thing. Because it's not just the trade, but it's what's going on around the trade. Um, but yeah, that'll wrap up this video. Let us know if you would like us to talk about any other trades from the past. You can go as far back as you want. Just don't make it something that like is very like
We wouldn't know about.
yeah we wouldn't know about. Like if you want us to talk about trades or like I don't know, make videos like more
Potential
videos like
trades, even.
this, potential trades, past trades, maybe like trade trees, whatever. Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike. And if you want to see more like this, subscribe. We will see you guys for the next video.